What's going on, guys? This is Lior with Compass out of Boston, and in this video I'm going to be giving you guys the full guide on how to buy a condo from start all the way to the finish. So let's get at it. What's going on, guys? My name's Lior and I'm with Compass out of Boston. And in this video, I'm going to be giving you guys the full guide on everything you need to know and do in order to buy a condo around the Boston area from the start to the finish. So if you need advice on financing, on searching, on how the transactional process works, I'm going to be talking about everything in this video so you can use this as a full comprehensive guide on everything you need to think about if you're going to go down the path of potentially buying a condo around the greater Boston area. Now, before we dive right into it, two quick things. Number one, if this is your first time on my channel, make sure you smash that subscribe button and smash that like button on the video. It helps me a ton. And number two, if you guys are thinking about doing anything with real estate around the Boston area, whether it's buying, selling, investing, whatever it is, I get so many calls from you guys watching my videos, and I absolutely love it. So if you're thinking about doing anything, hit me up and I will help you out. Now, before we get into the actual steps of what you need to do in order to buy the condo, let's talk about where you need to be both financially as well as from like a life perspective, right? In order for it to make sense for you to buy a condo. So first, from financially, there's a few factors you need to consider. And number one is going to be total cash you have in the account. And what I mean by that is we're going to be talking about different financing options with different down payment ranges. But my point up front is going to be this, is it's generally not advisable to drop all of your saved cash into real estate, right? Whether it's going to be investment property or your own home, right? You don't want to drain your account. You typically want to have some money left over, A, for an emergency fund in case something goes wrong. B, remember, it's real estate, right? Things can break, things can go south. You don't want to be in a position where you own a home and maybe a furnace goes out or you have a major electrical issue and you don't have the cash to fix that. So you want to make sure that you're going to have some sort of cash left over after the actual acquisition of your house. Number two part about financials is going to be your monthly payment. And with monthly payments, you want to think about, well, what am I currently paying right now to live in, right? So if you're renting, you can compare your rent, you can compare your total monthly rent. If you own another house, you can compare your mortgage. But basically, you want to come up with a number that makes sense to you of what I'm comfortable spending every single month on a monthly payment perspective. And again, this will help you in figuring out your financing. It'll help you figure out your price range in your cities, everything. So it's really crucial to be honest about budget, about what you want to budget for your monthly payment. Number three factor we're going to want to consider in the financials is going to be your credit score. And if you don't know how to check your credit score, there's plenty of free resources. My favorite is just going on Credit Karma. It's a free resource where you can pull your credit score and get a sense of where you're at. And if you're going to be below 700, there are certainly loan options that will lend, right, that you can still pull, even if you're below 700. But just understand that generally, the lower your credit score is, the more constricted your financing options are, and typically the higher your interest rate is. So if you need to work on your credit score, make sure you do that. There's plenty of other resources online on how to increase your credit score, whether you need to pay off debt or whatever it is. And then finally, in terms of where you are from a lifestyle perspective, it's generally not advisable to buy a home if you are going to be moving from it, say, within a year or two, right? Because there are certainly costs associated with both buying and selling real estate, right? So if you know that within a year or maybe 2 years, you're going to have to move across the country and you don't want to keep this home as a rental property, then you might want to think twice about potentially buying a home, right? Because again, you're going to have a lot of closing costs as a buyer. You're going to have a lot of closing costs as a seller. So you might just want to do the math that, hey, if I'm not going to be here for at least probably 2 to 3 years, I would say at minimum, you might want to do the math on whether it actually makes sense to buy or whether you should just keep on renting. So assuming you pass all these checks, right, and it still makes sense for you to go potentially buy a condo, let's get into that first kind of filter or first step, if you will, of what I would advise to do. And that first step is going to be for getting a general sense of where you want to live, what kind of unit is important to you, what kind of amenities are important to you. And you can kind of do this within your head, right? You can obviously Google, start looking at listings, but a lot of this I typically find buyers kind of just start really have already an idea in their head of what they want, right? So from an area perspective, for example, it's rare where someone will say, you know, I want 1, 2, 3 area, right? Typically, most people have a couple of general areas that are potentially interested, right? So if you're shopping downtown, you might say, yeah, I'm potentially interested in like the South End, maybe South Boston, maybe the North End. Sometimes I'll get people that say, you know what, I'm kind of interested in like that Watertown, Waltham, maybe Belmont, maybe, maybe Newton area. So you typically get some sort of sense of areas of where you want to live in, right? And again, it doesn't have to be that specific. It could be within 10 miles of Boston as well. That's a fine answer. But you just want to start thinking about general areas of where do you want to live, and then also what's important to you, right? Are you going to be looking at 1,000 square foot units with 2 bedrooms? Are you going to be looking at 2,000 square foot townhomes with 3 bedrooms and 3 baths, right? Again, you want to kind of start getting a general feel of what am I actually looking for, right? It doesn't need to be nailed down like, you know, I need 750 square feet with open concept, et cetera, right? It could just be pretty high level, just so you can kind of start creating a high level filter for yourself of areas, types of units. If you really want to get crazy, you might think about types of condos as well, right? So we're going to talk a lot about this in this video, but types of condos could be, I want to live in a small association with maybe only 2 or 3 other neighbors. Maybe I want to live in a really big complex where there's like 200 units and a lot more amenities, right? So you can also start thinking about the trade-offs there. But the point here is to just start getting a general sense of this is what I'm potentially looking at, right? This is where I want to be, and this is probably what's going to be important for me. Now, after that, my suggestion is to start talking to a mortgage broker or a lender, right? Because at this point, once you have a general feel of where you're going to be at, you kind of want to start filtering a little bit by price, right? Because, you know, if you're not going to get pre-approved for more than $500,000, it doesn't really make sense for you to start looking at $800,000 or $900,000 units, right? It just doesn't really make sense. Now, you know, generally you're going to want to do this step if you're probably about 3 to 4 or 5 months away at most. If you're further out than 6 months, I would say don't worry about this step for now. Just kind of keep on filtering and move on to the next step. But in terms of what you need to do if you're going to start that pre-approval process with a mortgage broker, what you need to know is you're going to submit all of your financials, right? So you're going to submit everything about your assets, your liabilities, your income, your pay stubs, any sort of debt you owe. The lender's going to check your credit score. And based on that, they're basically going to come up with a ratio that's called DTI, or debt to income. And they're going to figure out how much total debt or mortgage you can afford based on your financials, right? So a lender will say, look, your DTI is XYZ. Based on that, based on your income, based on all your financials, we can approve you for a loan of, say, $500,000. Now, the other thing the lender can work with you is start working on some potential different financing options. Again, depending on how quickly you're going to buy a house, you don't necessarily need to figure that out exactly right now, but you can start having those conversations with the lender, right, about whether you're going to do a conventional loan, maybe you're going to do a first-time buyer loan, maybe you're going to do an FHA loan, right? And it all depends, again, on your credit score, on your financials, how much cash down you want to put down. Those are all points and conversations that you can have with your lender. Now, just to give you an overview, it is certainly a myth that you need at least 20% down to buy a home. That is certainly not the case. I've bought a number of properties where I've put down way less than 20%. On the condo side, you can go as low as 5% and still be with a conventional loan. You can go 5%, you can go 10, 15. You can, of course, go 20 or 25 if you wanted to, but not necessary. The one thing you need to know, if you're going to go below 20% down, you will have what's called a PMI payment, or private mortgage insurance, which will add a little bit to your monthly payment. Now, you will have access to other financing options as well. If you're going to be a first-time buyer and you don't own other real estate, you can potentially access programs like mass housing, which allows you to put down as little as 5%. If your credit score is lower, maybe it makes sense for you to go with an FHA loan. Again, you can put down as little as 3.5% or 5%. So the point here is there's a lot of different loan options that kind of configure depending on where you are financially, how much cash down you want to put, etc. So talk to your lender about this, right? Again, you don't have to get super specific right off the bat, but at least that conversation can get your brain going about, hey, these are some of the options I have. You know, if I need to save up 5%, and I know I don't want to spend more than $400,000, I know I just need to save up about $20,000 to $25,000 for that purchase. So once you have this process down, it's time to move to the next step, and that's really starting to hammer down on what you're looking for in a condo and a complex. So let's start first with different types of condo complexes. I already kind of mentioned this, but typically around the greater Boston area, we have a number of different types of condo complexes, right? We have what's usually like the 2 or 3 family condo complex, which is very common. We have what then is like the low rise or the smaller condo associations, which could be anything from like say 6 to 15 units. And then you have the much bigger complexes, which can be anything from 30 to well over 200 units, right? And each types of condo complex comes with their own advantages and disadvantages. On the 2 to 3 family side, you're typically the advantage is obviously you're only going to have 1 or 2 neighbors, right? And for some people, that's really important. The other nice thing is with those associations, you typically have a pretty low condo fee, right? That condo fee will really only typically include water and sewer, master insurance, maybe landscaping and snow removal, but not really much beyond that. And you can typically find that those fees to be anywhere from $100 to let's say $200, $250. It's pretty rare where it's more than that. Now, if you want to go into a slightly bigger condo association, and you maybe want to go into like say that 6 to 15, 20 unit building, you know, that's certainly another possibility. Over there, your condo fee is typically going to be a little higher because you might have management, property management associated with that condo fee. You'll probably have some sort of landscaping, some sort of snow removal, and those condo fees can be somewhere around $250 to let's say $400. You typically won't get a lot more amenities for your dollars. Maybe you'll have something on site, but especially with the older buildings, I would say it's pretty rare. And then the large complexes, which is the other type of condo association building, that's when you typically see buildings with a lot more amenity offerings. So especially if you're downtown or if you're in a newer building, you might see offerings like gyms. You know, you can have as crazy amenities as valet parking, nutritionists on staff, pools, conference rooms, some sort of activities, right? If you really go downtown, they might have like wine tastings every so often, etc. So it really, obviously it depends on exactly the type, on where the building is, how new it is, and where it is. But that's those large complexes, when you really get into those big buildings, that's typically when you see a lot more amenities offered for that condo fee. Now, that condo fee is of course going to be higher there. That condo fee can be anywhere from $400 to $500 to as high as $1,500 and well beyond that. Just depending on the type of building, where it's at, the location, the quality, etc. But that's something you really want to consider is what's important for me. Do I want to spend more money on a condo fee to get into, say, for example, better amenities? Do I want to stick to smaller associations and kind of minimize my condo fee? Do I care if I have a lot more neighbors? Do I care if I only have 1 or 2 neighbors? Those are all factors you want to start running through your head. Now, next, you're going to start to filter by what's important for you for the actual unit, right? So you're going to want to figure out, do I want to buy luxury condos? Do I want to buy condos that maybe need some updating and I can do some work to? You're going to want to start to get pretty specific about square footage, bedroom and bathroom count, right? So for example, you might say, you know what, I just need a 1 bed, 1 bath and I'm good. Or maybe I need at least 2 baths and at least 3 beds, and that's kind of a deal breaker. You really want to start kind of firming out those criteria. Same thing with square footage, right? I mean, maybe you want at least 1,000 square feet, or maybe you don't need more than 700 square feet, right? You really want to get very specific about what's important for you and what really is going to be a deal breaker for you. And you're going to want to also filter by other criteria that's important for you. There's other criteria like laundry, right? Do you have to have in-unit laundry? Are you okay with laundries common in the basement? You're gonna wanna figure out parking situation, especially if you're gonna be living in the city or close to the city. Whether you need off-street parking, whether you need garage parking, if you're okay with on-street. And then you're also gonna wanna figure out what's important for you in terms of outdoor space, especially in the era of COVID. That's obviously very important. Do you want your own private space, right? Like a own private patio or own private deck or balcony? Are you okay with a shared backyard space, maybe a shared roof deck, right? So those are all other additional features you're gonna wanna figure out and really sort by and see what's important for me, what's a deal breaker for me, and what do I want in my condo. So once you have those criteria kind of figured out, you can start really looking at listings online. And as you start to look at more listings online, you're probably gonna wanna figure out how to go start seeing them in person. And before you do that at this point, I would probably suggest you take this step, which is actually connect with a local real estate agent. Obviously I'm one, but if you live in a different area, you can certainly connect with another local agent. Now I should note that for a real estate agent, if you're gonna reach out to him, one question I do get quite a bit is, does it cost any money? And just to kind of explain it to you guys real quick, when you're buying a home, you should use an agent. It does not actually cost you any money, right? Because the way it works in real estate is both the buyer's agent and the seller's agent get paid from the seller's proceeds, right? So you can imagine there's like one pot, right, of commissions. That pot is split at closing between the buyer's agent and the seller's agent once the transaction is closed. Now you might think, well, if I don't use a buyer's agent, could I negotiate that deal down and use that as leverage? Not really, because what typically happens is if you don't use an agent, then that seller's agent is essentially going to represent you, going to represent the seller, and they're going to keep the entire thing, right? So that pot, that seller is going to get charged the same amount. So it's advantageous to you to have someone represent you, guide you, and make sure make sure that everything's going in your favor as you go through the home buying process, the transactional process, and through closing. So now with your agent, what you're gonna be able to start doing is continue to go to in-person showings. And that's really important, right? Because you can view listings online, but it's not until you actually look at these units and you're really gonna start figuring out what you really like, how things feel, what's important. It's going to really just put a lot of big dose of reality to all of your criteria, right? And your agent can help you figure out what's normal, what's not normal for a specific type of market. Look out for red flags, anything you need to be aware of, etc. Right? So you're going to continue to go to a lot of different showings and continue to really refine your sense of what you like and you don't. And eventually what's going to happen, we're going to lead into the next step, is you're going to end up figuring out what you like and you're going to start putting down offers, right? So you're going to start putting down offers on places. And again, your agent's going to guide you on this quite a bit. They're going to help you figure out how to put the most competitive offer where you can still get the best price, the best possible terms, and still have a really good chance of getting the unit, right? Now, a lot of this is certainly going to depend on how much you like specific units, right? At the end of the day, if you absolutely love units, your agent's going to advise you, well, if you really want to get this, then you should go in and play this more aggressively. Whereas if you're going to be more of a, hey, you know what, I kind of like it. If I get it, great. If not, it's okay. Then your agent can help you figure out how to play it, where you're maybe undercutting a little bit. Again, it's going to be a balance of different things, right? You're going to balance how much you like the unit, how much you're willing to pay for it, how many contingencies you're going to be okay with, etc. So it's going to be a lot of balancing and a lot of figuring out as you go. But again, you're going to be putting a lot of, expect to put in at least a couple of offers. I have had people get their first offer accepted, although I'd say it's probably a little bit more rare. But that's going to be a critical step as you submit more offers, go to more viewings, etc., to actually get something done. Now, once you get an offer accepted, which is going to be obviously extremely exciting, there's going to be a couple of due diligence materials you're going to have to do, and one of them is going to be specific to condos. So the first thing that we're typically going to be doing is a home inspection. And what's going to happen with a home inspection is you're going to hire a third-party home inspector, right? Someone completely independent. They're going to come in and inspect your unit, make sure everything's working. They're going to inspect the mechanicals, make sure that everything is kind of in working condition, make sure there's no major red flags for you. Now, that's pretty common across all types of real estate, whether you buy single family, condo, or multifamily. But what's going to be even more specific for condos, in addition to the inspection, you're also going to do what's called a condo doc and budget review. And basically what's going to happen is you and your attorney are going to get access to the current condo docs for the association, which are going to spill out all the rules. They're going to specify exactly what's owned by who and by which unit. So for example, if you have a deck, you're going to confirm that it specifies that you have exclusive right, exclusive use to this deck. It's going to show any sort of restrictions, right? So maybe if there's any sort of pet restrictions, maybe there's some sort of rental restrictions. Even though you might be owner occupying the unit, if you decide to leave the unit in 2 years and rent it out, you want to be aware if there's any rental restrictions, because there are some buildings that have maybe a specific percentage of units that can be rented at the same time. So you might have to go on a wait list. So those are going to be the things you're going to be reviewing. Making sure you're comfortable with all the rules. So that's really it in terms of condo specific homework that you'll have to do. Everything after this during the transaction is pretty similar, whether you buy single family or multifamily. You're basically going to sign a purchase and sales contract, and then your lender is going to step in, take over the process, and get that loan ready to be approved and funded, and then you'll end up closing on your home. So hopefully that makes sense, guys. If you guys have any questions, any thoughts, put them below in the comments. And like I said, guys, I get so many calls from you guys watching my videos. If you guys have any questions, any thoughts about doing anything with real estate around the Boston area, hit me up. We can set a Zoom call and go over your specific goals, your specific aspirations, and come up with a game plan specific to you. And guys, I've also got a private Facebook group. If you just go into Facebook, search Boston North Living. It is my private Facebook group where I put out tons of updates about what's going on around the Boston area. So search that, make sure to ask permission to join, and I'll let you in. So with that, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video and hope we can connect soon.